In the early 1900s, the Hasidim, the Ashkenazi mystics, were forced to flee Eastern Europe, facing pogroms and the darkening clouds of European anti-Semitism. They looked to America as a new home of potential safety and security. But in coming to America, they were terrified of one thing: that the freedoms and liberties of the American dream would be so seductive that Judaism would take a backseat to Americanism, or, chas v'chalila, God forbid, maybe no seat at all. They feared that the objective of thousands of years of anti-Jewish hate, the annihilation of the Jewish people, would finally be achieved, not through violence, but through assimilation. And so, like the Hasidim so beautifully do, they shared their concern by telling a story. The story was told on steamers to New York and Boston, on trains to Detroit and Chicago, in small crowded tenements on the Lower East Side and Brooklyn, and in the Stieblich and the study houses of Los Angeles and Philadelphia. And it went like this. There was once a family who wanted to honor the Rebbe of the shtetl by gifting the synagogue with a brand new Torah cover. It was beautiful, hand-sewn, made with expensive dyed threads. But when the day came to switch the cover and honor this generous gift, the Gabayim and the synagogue elders couldn't fit the Torah into the cover. What should we do? They asked the Rebbe. Should we cut the parchment of the Torah down so it will fit? Of course not, the Rebbe replied. The cover is beautiful and we are so thankful for it, but it needs to be expanded. We don't cut the Torah to fit the cover. We make the cover stretch to fit the Torah. We make the cover stretch to fit the Torah. For over 200 years, American Judaism has navigated that careful balance of stretching out our Torah cover while doing our best to leave Torah alone. We've become a proud beacon of world Jewry, building synagogues and yeshivas, day schools and summer camps. We have trained incredible rabbis, cantors, scholars, and Jewish thinkers. We've adapted the culture and traditions of our ancestors to create a vibrant and meaningful American Jewish identity. And we have stunned the world with our contributions to science, literature, philosophy, theology, and entertainment. We've danced that complicated dance, and we've stretched that cover beautifully and efficiently. But today we face a new challenge to that sacred objective, one that I think would have been unimaginable to our ancestors. Not just the Ashkenazim, but the entire corpus of world Jewry that found its way to this country. Because today our challenge isn't one of American seduction. It's not about finding harmony between the secular treasures of American life and our own traditions and cultures. It's quite the opposite. Our challenge isn't coming to us from the dream of America. It's coming to us from the fear and from the heartbreak of America. Our ancestors knew that we would fall in love with American fashion, food, and entertainment. They knew that we would be enchanted by American consumerism, business opportunities, and the limitless potential for financial and reputational success. And they definitely knew that we would fall in love with our non-Jewish neighbors. How could we not, when we're living side by side with beautiful, intelligent, and kind people from all over the world who have also made this place their home? They knew all of this. And they said, okay, as long as we stay Jewish, as long as we remember who we are, as long as Torah remains intact. What they didn't expect was for us to fall in love with American hatred, to fall in love with divisiveness, propaganda, and conspiracy theory, for us to elevate an identity of political tribalism above all, and to turn on not just our roots and our tradition, but on our own people, our own brothers and sisters, our own children. That fear never crossed their mind, because the very thought of it is absurd. It's anathema to who we are as a people. We Jews are a lot of things, but we are not hateful. We are not motivated by fear, and we are not easily manipulated. At least we didn't used to be. But somewhere along this journey of ours, we abandon our metaphor. And rather than trying to expand the mantle of America to fit the scroll of our Yiddishkeit, we've grown frustrated. And we set them down side by side, allowing them to be two separate identities rather than working through the stretching, the pulling, and the growing. We've decided that both hold their own value, so why bother spending so much time and energy forcing them together? We can leave the Torah here, and over there, there's plenty of room for the cover. That separation, that compartmentalization won't work, because our Judaism isn't a sweater that we can throw on whenever we'd like to feel a little bit warmer and cozier. Our Judaism doesn't magically appear when we enter a synagogue, when we attend a Passover Seder, or when our El Al flight touches down on the outskirts of Tel Aviv. Our Judaism is us. It is our skin, it is our bones, the very essence of who and what we are. It is the air that we breathe, and it is the blood that pulses through our communal body, creating a family that has existed longer than any family in history. We can't treat it as a component, a sub-label of identity. And we certainly can't let it take a backseat to punditry and partisanship. Because those identities aren't real. They may seem real, and they may fill us with anger and anxiety and fear that certainly feel real. But when we need them, those parties, those organizations, those committees, I promise that they're not going to be there. When chas v'shalom we lose someone we love and we're sitting shiva with our collar torn and tears blurring our eyes, it's not going to be Joe Biden holding our hand and helping us say Kaddish. When we are sick and alone, stuck at Beaumont or Henry Ford, it's not going to be Donald Trump who brings us challah, matzo ball soup, and candles so we can still feel some of the sweetness of Shabbat. To frame ourselves within the context of a political party or movement is to dramatically underestimate the beauty, complexity, and holiness of who we are. It can be a part of us, just like any other qualifier, just like we're vegetarians or golfers or lawyers or chas v'shalom Lions fans, whatever it might be. But it is being a Jew that offers the lens through which we should see everything. At times that can feel limiting and alienating. We are, after all, a tiny fraction of the world's population. And so it's understandable to crave belonging elsewhere. There's a reason that the Rav, Rabbi Soloveitchik of blessed memory, referred to our Jewish existence as Ha'ish Boded Shel Emunah, as the lonely man of faith. Because when you're the only one not eating shrimp at a party or singing Christmas songs at the office, it can feel lonely. Of course it can. But it's not what we miss out on that defines us. It is what we gain through being part of this ancient family. And it is the beauty with which we get to see this world and all of its potential and all of its possibility. To be able to see a river, not just as a place to swim or fish, but to connect it to the waters of creation, or to the sanctity of mikveh, purifying and life-changing. To eat an apple, and not just appreciate its crunch and flavor, but to savor it as the expression of a new year, charged with sweetness, with goodness, and with hope. The Shulchan Aruch, the gold standard of Jewish law and practice, even tells us how we can put our shoes on in a way that fills us with gratitude. If you were wondering, by the way, it's you put your right shoe on, you put your left shoe on, tie your left shoe, then tie your right shoe. Also, we begin and end with Yamin, the right, which is meant to remind us of East, to remind us of Jerusalem, to remind us of our ancestral homeland. None of this is meant to be a burden or to fill us with guilt or anxiety. It's meant to give us a reminder in everything we do, in everything we see, in every way we live, that we are part of something so big and so special and invaluable. It's meant to fill us with pride. With pride. Pride not just in our survival, but in every part of what makes us who we are. Pride in our faith, pride in our music, pride in our food, our language, our literature, pride in our stories, our artwork, our customs, and our traditions. And it's meant to push us, to encourage us, to beg us to embrace who we are, so that we can infuse all the rest of it with sparks of Torah. And what that means practically is letting our Judaism paint the way we live our lives. To eat Jewishly, to love Jewishly, to read and study Jewishly, to hurt and grieve and mourn Jewishly, and yes, to vote and fight for justice Jewishly. What it doesn't mean is making room for hate, for propagating divisiveness, conspiracy theory, and fear-mongering, for being judgmental, for tolerating cruelty and indignity. What it doesn't mean is allowing talking heads with agendas and giant paychecks to tell us who we are and who we're supposed to despise. And what it doesn't mean is abandoning one another, this beautiful family of ours. It doesn't mean having the permission to give up on the sacred work of fitting our Torah into the Torah cover of the country around us. Because right now, that Torah cover could really benefit from that work, from growing and expanding to hold and carry the values of our tree of life. The story goes that the great German Jewish philosopher Franz Rosenzweig was pressured by his friends and colleagues to embrace the last missing piece of his German identity and to convert to Christianity. Not observant in practice by any means, Rosenzweig agreed, but with one caveat, that he first needed to try to live Jewishly before giving it up. The high holidays fell shortly after this agreement, and Rosenzweig found himself for the first time at Yom Kippur services in a small synagogue in Berlin. He never told anyone what happened that night, what he felt, what he saw, what moved him. But what we have is a letter that he wrote after Yom Kippur to the colleagues with whom he had made the agreement, written with one simple sentence: I shall remain a Jew. To my knowledge, none of us coming together to pray tonight have made a promise to convert or complete some pledge of nationalism. But all of us are still tasked with reaffirming on the Shabbat of Shabbatons, on the sacred and significant day, the gift we have been given by those who came before us. To cherish it, to live it, to breathe it with unshakable pride, to let it be the font through which the waters of every other aspect of us flows. Tonight and for the next 24 hours, it is incumbent on us to pray, to atone, to forgive, and to ask for forgiveness. But most importantly, it is incumbent on us to ask ourselves who we are. Not our hobbies, our voter registration, or our job titles, but who we are as the ikar, the spiritual definition of our identity. And then when we've done that work, when we've done that soul searching, we have to get back to the other work, fitting our Torah into its cover with unity, with love, and with pride. Tonight, I am thankful. I am a father, a husband, and a rabbi. I am a reader, a music lover, and a coffee aficionado. I am a voter, an active and dedicated constituent of the state of Michigan and the United States of America. I am a hopeless soccer fan and an even more hopeless fly fisherman. And how I understand all of it, every last bit of it, is through the unbroken heartbeat of these ancient roots called Torah. These roots made me and make me. These roots shaped me and shape me. And it is these roots, please God, that I will share with my son so that he can continue to water them, to nurture them, and wrap up his very being in them. That is who I am. I am a Jew, and I will remain a Jew.